Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane. I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library, and I am super excited to be here with Kristen from the Fantasy Cafe talking about sci-fi and fantasy books that we should all be reading. I saw her list. It's amazing. You're going to want to buckle up. Before we get started, I want to say thanks to the Friends of the Ashland Public Library for supporting all of our programs, and I'd like to thank Kristen for letting us share this program with other libraries because you all know me. If libraries are working together, we're making magic. Um, we're going to spend the next half hour talking about Kristen's recommendations. You don't have to be taking notes if you don't want to. I'll send a list out to everybody afterwards. You're obviously welcome to make a list though, and please use the chat to let us know what you're reading and enjoying right now, and I will include that in the follow-up email as well. So, Kristen, Fantasy Cafe. I'm so excited to go through this list with you. I know there's a lot, so I'm going to try to keep my questions to a minimum, but if anybody in the audience has questions, please let me know, and I will definitely let Kristen know that you have a question. So, Kristen, what's up first?
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, and don't have to worry too much about asking questions if you have any.
Oh, okay.
Um, so first up, I've got Lilith's Brood by Octavia E. Butler,
Hmm.
which, all of her books are amazing. So this one is actually an omnibus that contains all three books in her Xenogenesis trilogy, which is a science fiction series that is about humanity's transformation into a new species after most of humanity was destroyed in a worldwide war.
Hmm.
So these three came out in the 1980s. And if you don't have an omnibus edition like this one or the Xenogenesis trilogy, the book you want to start with is called Dawn.
Go on. Okay.
So the basic premise of this is that everybody died. Well, not everybody, but most people died during this worldwide war. And then these aliens came along and rescued the remaining survivors that they could find. These aliens call themselves gene traders, which means that they basically go around, they find new species, and they combine their genetics with that of other species. So they're just this constantly evolving species.
Sounds kind of
And
like the Borg. No.
so they take these humans aboard their ship orbiting Earth and they put them in a cryogenic sleep because they're sure that they're going to be uncomfortable with seeing them. And they give them some genetic changes, like they make them more long-lived, they get rid of their diseases, but they also make it so that they can no longer have children. And the only way they can have children is if they agree to join one of these alien families and let them combine their alien and human DNA to make a new species. So one of the reasons I love this is the same reason I love one of her other books that I talked about back in May, which is the Seed to Harvest Omnibus, her Patternist books. And that's because they both kind of deal with big changes over time. And they're different books, but they're also about the evolution of humanity. Except, the other one's about people with superpowers who end up with these strong telepathic abilities. And this one's about, a new species that's human and alien.
Hmm.
Um, these three books kind of take you through different timelines in this. Like the first one's just about, how do humans cope with learning that, they're among aliens? How did they respond to the situation they find themselves in? And it's shown from the perspective of a woman named Lilith who awakens on the ship.
Mm.
And the next two books, deal more with the development of this new species and the different changes during the aftermath of this, with the second book following the first male child born to a human. And the third one follows the first one of these people who is of the third alien sex that's neither male nor female.
Hmm.
So this is a good set of books to read if you like complex, unusual books that give you a lot to think about, and if you like aliens that really seem alien.
Hmm. What do they with the combined human and alien DNA? I'll call it DNA. Did they
Mhm.
look more human or did they look more alien?
It kind of depended, because I think at first, if I remember correctly, they go through this metamorphosis
Hmm.
at some point, and I think they start off looking more human, and then later they end up looking a bit more alien, but there's some of both there.
Oh, they're not like insect people, are they?
I don't
Like,
think so, no.
no, I always think of aliens as sort of insecty, but I know that's not true. Is Octavia Butler? I'm sorry, I have to ask questions. Octavia
It's fine.
Butler, does she usually write sci-fi? I felt like she writes in other genres as well.
She writes a variety of things.
Hmm.
Like this one, sci-fi. I mean, Patternist is, I think, usually considered sci-fi, but it's one of those that kind of has elements of both. You could
Hmm.
call it sci-fi, you could call it fantasy.
Okay.
Um, Kindred is her time travel standalone book, and then she's got Fledgling, which is about vampires,
Hmm.
and then her parable books, which are, sort of dystopian sci-fi.
Hmm. I have to say, and people in the audience, let me know what you think. I can't read time travel because I always think it loops. It just keeps
Mhm.
happening over and over. I can't get past that. And I haven't read a book that has explained it well enough to me to not make me think the loop. And then it makes me crazy because I'm like, it just keeps happening.
Yeah,
So, anyways, that's me.
Kindred isn't really like that. I don't usually like time travel either,
Mhm.
but I love that one though.
I might have to try it.
Maybe it's
Um,
also a standalone, so
oh, so if I don't like it, I don't have to worry about like more books in the
right.
series. Like
It's
what's gonna
fairly
happen?
short. It's a standalone.
Okay, I will give that a try. I'll take your word for it, Kristen. Um, okay, so what is next on your list?
Okay. Next up, I have another science fiction book from the late 1980s, like that one. This one is The Player of Games by Ian M. Banks. So, this is in a series called The Culture that has 10 published books, nine novels, and one short story collection. This is actually the second published book in the series, but they're standalones for the most part. And this is usually where people recommend starting because you get a good idea of what the culture is. And the first book is actually considered one of the weaker ones in the series.
Mm.
So it's kind of like Discworld, where people say, maybe you don't want to start with the first book. Um,
Well, how does that work for somebody like me who has to read in order? Would somebody like me abandon the series because the first book's weak?
I think that's kind of what people worry about is that you won't get a good enough feel for what the series is like and you'll give up on it before you really realize you might have actually really liked it.
Mm, that's a problem I have. So yes, please go on. Tell us more about
So, for some context, the culture, which the series is set in, is a civilization that has both humanoids and sentient machines. And it's a post-scarcity society. So, people don't have to worry about money or shelter or food. That's all taken care of. They have really advanced medicine and they live for a long time. And this particular book is about someone he's basically an expert game player, like of strategy games and that sort of thing.
it.
And he's kind of gotten a bit bored with this because, there's not a lot of stakes when you can't really gamble on anything. Victory's nice, but there's only so much that you can do. So when he gets bored, he ends up getting into this situation where he kind of gets blackmailed. He kind of gets challenged to travel to a distant alien empire and learn this game that their entire world revolves around. So, what I loved about this one was it being a combination of gaming with a sort of cultural clash. This isn't one that goes too deeply into the mechanics of the game, but it was really interesting just how intrinsic it was to this empire. Because this is a game that's supposed to imitate life, and it's supposed to be complex enough that if you succeed at the game, you succeed at life. And it's
Hmm.
kind of what they use for kind of like job applications sometimes. You know, they'll figure out who can be judges. They have this big tournament every once in a while. Whoever wins it ends up as emperor. And, you know, the people who come close to winning usually end up as generals and stuff like that.
It sounds like a sci-fi Squid Game, I have to say, if you've
Well,
ever
not,
watched it.
yeah, I have, but they're actually, well, they're rewarded, but there are, there can be bets that don't end so well.
Hmm.
So everyone in this empire is immersed in this game from the time they're born, basically. So the challenge is, can he learn enough about this game in 2 years to be competitive against people who've been learning it during their entire lives and been immersed in it?
Hmm.
And it's really, the culture and the game are so closely tied together. And, it's also about somebody who has to acclimate to a society that's very different from theirs because this is an alien society. They have more rules, they have more inequality, they have less advanced technology. Um, and sometimes when they do have more advanced technology, they don't let you use it. Like people from the culture are constantly changing from male to female and back again. But these people could do that, but that is a big taboo in their society.
Mm.
So it's a really interesting book. There's also a bit of intrigue and dangerous situations that come up. And you might enjoy that one if you like books that are fun but also thoughtful.
Hmm. I do like books that are fun but thoughtful. It also sounds a little cutthroat.
Uh, it
In terms of trying to
can
get
be.
ahead in that society when you're not,
Mm,
when you're not part of it. I think, in would you consider him an immigrant, like to that place, kind of thing, and trying to
mm.
acclimate to that culture and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it can be. And they do sometimes make bets that are kind of cutthroat in the midst of playing the game.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. But again, I have to read in order, so I might have a little trouble with that. But I do appreciate the dystopian thing. Um, and you really liked it, like after you got through the first one.
I actually have not read the first one yet. This is the one that I started with. I've read some of the other books, but I haven't read the first one yet.
Hmm. So you don't have to read it in order to understand what's going on.
No, you don't.
Excellent. All right, you heard it here. Read them as you like them. How many books are there in the series?
10, 9 novels and a short story collection.
Wow. Okay. All right. Have some time, to make that commitment.
But they do tend to follow different characters. This one is considered a good starting point just because it gives you enough of an idea about what the culture is about that you can just jump into it and
Hmm.
get a pretty good idea of it.
Awesome. What's next?
Next, I've got a book called Mirage. This is by Somaya Daoud. And this is a Moroccan-inspired science fiction book. It's the first book in a young adult duology. And this is a completed duology, so if you start it, you can actually finish it. So this book is about a girl named Amani who's stolen from her home moon because she has an uncanny resemblance to the emperor's daughter and heir, who's actually from the same people she's from. She's from the people that he conquered. And as she's getting old enough that she's going to start making more appearances as heir, the emperor wants somebody else to be a target if there are assassination attempts.
Oh boy.
So she's supposed to train to be able to take her place, imitate her mannerisms, that sort of thing. So after she's put in this situation, Amani uses her unique position in the empire to become involved in the rebellion against the emperor. And she also starts to learn more as she spends time in the princess's shoes about how she's actually got a lot of vulnerabilities
Hmm.
because she comes to understand more about the different sides of her family and how she doesn't quite fit in. And she realizes that this is someone who might just be trying to survive in her father's world like the rest of them. And even though she seems cruel, it's possible that she could learn to be someone better than her father is. So, with this one, I absolutely love the main character. I really love her narration.
Hmm.
Um, the author doesn't just tell us who she is as a woman of faith, a poet, and a scholar, but her voice actually reflects all these traits. And she's also not the type of character who has flashy powers or fighting skills. She's someone whose strength lies in her qualities like her hope, empathy, and insight.
Hmm.
And I really love those types of characters when they're done well, and she really is. Um, so there is a little bit of romance in this, but the main relationship is the platonic relationship between Amani and the princess, and it's the most interesting one. As the princess can be awful, and it never feels like our worst tendencies are being forgotten or dismissed, but it also feels like, you get to see her fears, her loneliness, her longing to belong that she's hiding beneath the surface. And there's kind of, she starts to seem like she could have a different side that's being drawn out. And there's kind of a will they, won't they when it comes to friendship. Will they end up as friends or bitter enemies at the end of this?
Hmm.
So this one might be a good book for someone who wants a book that's not action heavy and full of twists and turns, but wants intensity stemming from emotional impact in characters and relationships. And I also think it might be a good book for somebody who usually reads fantasy but might want to try science fiction. The
Hmm.
authors referred to it as being space fantasy before, and there is a part in the first book that's kind of a fantastical, mythical bird that they talk about that becomes more important in the second book and is fleshed out a bit more.
Allison says it sounds a little like Aleph the Unseen by G. Willow Wilson. Didn't G. Willow Wilson write Faith, the comic book? I love that comic book. But Allison loved this for its blend of sci-fi and fantasy and a cyber world meets Jin type vibe. Have you read that?
I haven't. I've heard good things about it, but I haven't read that one.
Okay.
I read one
Um,
of her other books.
well, I think she does write that comic book, or at least I don't know.
She does
But
write some, like Ms. Marvel.
oh, was she Ms. Marvel? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about somebody else for Faith, which I also really love. But I love comic books in general, so so many of them. Um, Yeah, it sounds really good. That sounds really interesting. And I like I always like books where people learn about each other because they live in their shoes a little bit, like to learn about their
Hmm.
perspective. And so I would definitely look into that, especially if it's a duology, a finished one, so you can,
Hmm.
finish the whole story. Um, is it a relatively new series or book?
It was from, I think, 2018.
Okay.
It was around there. Yeah, 2018.
Okay. Great. Yeah, we should definitely pick that up.
Yeah, I keep hoping that they'll have some news about more from her, but I haven't heard of anything yet.
We'll keep an ear out, right?
I really want her to write more.
We have to write her a note. Have you ever gotten in touch with one of your authors to just say how much you enjoyed their books and then and they respond?
Not usually just for that reason.
Okay, because I know you do have the blog and authors do write articles for you. So I think I love authors, so I love being in touch with them
Hmm.
and being and wondering like what's happening in their brains. So
Hmm.
yeah, maybe we need to make a campaign. So yeah, what's up? What's next? I know I'm asking more questions than I wanted to, but I can't seem to stop.
It's fine. Um, so next, another book that actually came out around the same time. This is A Spark of White Fire by Sangu Mandana. And this is the first book in a completed young adult trilogy that is both science fiction and fantasy. It's sort of a retelling, well, not a retelling, but it's inspired by the Indian epic, the Mahabharata. And it also might be a good book for people who, might want to try more science fiction, who are more fantasy readers, because again, it's got the mythic elements and the space parts.
Hmm.
It's a story with gods and goddesses, prophecies and curses, a divided royal family, and a sentient worship that doesn't really like the idea of all the destruction for which she was created,
Hmm.
which is pretty fun.
It sounds really unusual too.
Yeah, I think it's a really neat book.
Hmm.
So this one starts with a princess who has been living in secret. Um, a goddess has warned her that she should not actually tell people who she is because there will be dire consequences, but she really wants to meet her twin brother and her family, and so she decides that she's going to tell people who she is. And she enters this contest for the God-forged warship that everyone expects her famed twin brother to win. And she ends up doing well enough that, people know for a fact that she is who she claims to be.
Hmm.
And then she's invited to join the other side of her family, her uncle's side, and stay with them for a time. And she does that intending to use what she learns about them to help her twin brother in the war against them. But once she actually spends time around them, she realizes that things with her family aren't quite as black and white as she'd always imagined that they were. And this is just one of those really fun books that, hooked me right from the start, and I could not put it down.
It sounds like a little bit like a Cinderella retelling. Is it Cinderella that was sent into the woods with her fairy godmother so that she wouldn't uh, die? Yeah, right? She was
Yeah, I
told
don't
like
know.
she wasn't supposed to. Anyways, it's fine. I think yeah. Sleeping Beauty, Sleeping Beauty.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
she has
was
a
like, I mean, I
spindle.
know there's multiple versions, so maybe there's one.
Obviously, I'm messing up my Disney princesses, but yeah, Sleeping Beauty was sent away so that she wouldn't die because she had a curse on her, and there would be dire consequences if she, came to light.
Mhm.
Interesting. Um, yeah, so you thought this was a fun book?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I like things about meddling gods. And this had one where, they chose favorites, they reward their favorites, they'd also end up cursing other people who wronged their favorites. And I also really like that she set this in space because I felt like it really gave them a bigger playground
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
doing this sort of thing. Um, and I really loved the main character and that she didn't remain stagnant. She was changing and learning, and she's someone who spent so long dreaming and wishing that she doesn't always see her surroundings clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of had to contend with that. And go ahead if you wanted to ask something.
No, I was just going to say that I love the representation. Being Indian, having grown up with the Mahabharata and all that, having and this one, and then earlier you had mentioned a book that was set, like a Moroccan set story.
Mhm.
So I'm really enjoying the diversity of the books that you're mentioning tonight.
Yeah, I think they're both really good.
Mhm.
They're both very underrated books, I think.
That happens when you have like books that are not as well, cultures that are not as well known.
Yeah, it often does, unfortunately. Um, oh, and I also really appreciated that, the characters didn't tend to be clearly good or bad. And this is a good one if you want faster paced and absorbing books that also have interesting characters and character interactions.
Mhm.
It's just really absorbing and fun.
Yeah, and I think Allison wrote that she really loves Sangu Mandana's cozy fantasy book, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which sounds like the best name ever created. So
That is a great title.
it's a great title. But cozy fantasy, I didn't even know that was a thing. So that's really
Mhm.
interesting for me too. just the different genres that are starting to like kind of evolve out of like the basic ones that we've always known about.
Mhm.
We have time for probably one more.
Okay.
We've actually gotten through quite a bit today.
Well, that's actually why I did a standalone next instead of a series, since there was a bit more to talk about with series. So this one is a new book, actually. This is one of my favorite books from last year. It's called The Wings Upon Her Back by Samantha Mills.
Mhm. Look at that awesome cover.
Yeah, that is a nice cover.
Hmm.
This is a debut novel, although the author has also written short stories before. And it's a standalone science fantasy novel. It's set in a city where it is an awesome book. And it's in a city whose people still follow these five gods that are now sleeping above the city. At one point, they come and brought the people gifts, and then they just kind of disappeared, but the people still continue to follow them. This one's about a woman who's a follower of the Mecha god, and she earned a set of mechanical wings due to her place in this god's um, sect of warriors and law enforcers. So the book starts with her actually deciding that she is not going to punish somebody and is disobeying her god, and it results in the removal of her wings and her expulsion from her order. And it's a book that alternates between her past as well as her present. It shows how she left her scholar family to be part of this warrior sect, and also how she came to be a favorite of one of the people who was pretty high up in this order, who eventually became the highest person in this order. And it also shows her grappling with the consequences of her choices when she decided to not punish somebody. And a story about disillusionment, redemption, and deciding to walk a new path, her own instead of someone else's. And it just has some really lovely writing in turns of phrase, and it's really interesting how it explores change and transformation. And I think what really sets this book apart is how it's about um how it delves into the protagonist's relationship with her mentor and her religion, but also how it focuses on someone who spent a lot of her adult life doing something that she's come to realize isn't right. I've read a lot of these types of books with younger characters who aren't quite into adulthood yet, or maybe they're just starting out in adulthood who kind of come across realizing, okay, maybe this isn't really a great thing to be doing. But, she spent 26 years dedicated to this, starting when she was a teenager. So she has to really grapple with what she spent her life on. And I think that gives it an interesting perspective.
Hmm.
So that's a good book for someone who wants standalone stories with a focus on character progression. And if you're interested in books that center a platonic relationship, that one has the mentor-mentee relationship.
It sounds really different, but also close to the beginnings of my favorite series right now, the Fourth Wing series by Rebecca Yarros, where the main character she's supposed to be a scholar, and she, for reasons, ends up being in the warrior class. But it's that same sort of like what was expected, what did you grow up thinking you were going to do, and how do you make do with what you end up with, and how do you shine
Hmm.
there? I mean, if anybody else has read it, maybe you can jump in. But I really like that concept of like somebody's not always what they are expected to be.
Hmm. Yeah, that's always an interesting one.
Yeah. So we are about out of time, but I did want to say that Kristen has agreed to continue this series with us, focusing more on fantasy next year. So I will send out a recap email to everybody saying with the details of that and how you can sign up for it. Because Kristen, you've been awesome all year long. I've really enjoyed your recommendations and your thoughtful, descriptions of why you like them and why we would like them.
Oh, thank you so much. That's lovely to hear.
Well,
It's been
it's been a
fun.
fun year. I expect more fun next year.
Hmm.
So yes, I'll send all that out, and I look forward to seeing you all next year. And we'll continue to talk about fantasy, wonderful fantasy books. And Elizabeth Bear, who is a sci-fi writer, is going to take over the sci-fi aspect of book recommendations in a separate program. But I know that Kristen will continue to sneak those sci-fi books in. So I'm not going to be mad about that because I love them. Kristen, have a great holiday and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for showing up.
Good night, everybody.